The vessel is a large, fuel-loaded frozen tuna fishing vessel that operates for approximately 120 days. There are two operating patterns, one when the oil will run out, or when the full load of fish needs to enter the port to unload the fish and resupply. Another way is to fish at sea and from transport ships that provide food, fuel and bait. The main species in the tuna fishery include sardines, sharks and sailfish. There are large deep-sea fish species, so work is often located in offshore fishing areas. Generally, when the ship departs, it takes 3 to 5 days to start operating. The boat is equipped with radar, fish finder, SSB, VHF, EPIRB, GPS, depth gauge, SART, sonar, positioning and other advanced equipment. The vessel is equipped with 3 freezers, 2 VZ42BMT45M and 1 VZ62BMT60M, with the ability to freeze at 50 degrees below zero to ensure freshness and seaworthiness. The main engine is Yanmar with a capacity of 837 kilowatts. It has 3 auxiliary motors, each with 2 horsepower of 135 kVA and 1 motor of 265 kVA. According to the regulations of the International Association of Ship Hull Manufacturers. So the anti-wave performance is excellent even during the 8 work on the storm. The ship is still stable enough to allow sailors to work on the ship. The ship uses USA-type rope pulling machines and automatic rope throwing machines. Except for a front cold store, it has 4 freezer stores, minus 55 degrees Celsius. The full fishing vessel has 10 cabins that can hold 230 tons of fish cargo when fully loaded. Spacious engine room helps employees work in nacelle. Machinery and equipment can also be arranged neatly and comfortably. The cabin has 28 beds and air conditioning. The number of beds depends on the number of crew members, which can be up to 28 units. The ship is part of the fishing unit, which has an important role in supporting the success of fishing operations, as is the case with tuna fishing units. The seaworthiness of a fishing vessel is largely determined by the level of stability of the ship itself, and one of the factors that determines the level of stability is the shape of the ship's rafters. Good ship stability is especially needed when operating static fishing gear, such as longline operations. Longline tuna vessels operating in Indonesia have various forms. This diversity is more due to where the ship was built. Based on the results of existing studies, it is known that there is no tendency to choose the shape of a ship's rafter based on the method of operating the fishing gear. The study was carried out by simulation using line plan data for several longline tuna vessels operated in Indonesia. By using GZ calculation software, stability parameter values are obtained which consist of max value, angle at max and ship turning energy. Next, these values are compared with the IMO stability. Longline is a fishing tackle consisting of main line, branch line, hook and reel. The fishing line is easy to operate and selective for catching bottom fish with a catch of high economic value, so it has development potential. Longline is one of the fishing gears operated at PPN Prigi. However, data on longline catch is very lacking, so it is necessary to study the composition of longline catch for information and understanding about primary and secondary catches and to know the stocks of fish caught by line. The purpose of this study was to determine the composition of the longline catch between vessels and each month, determine the main catch and bycatch, and identify species differences in the catch. Longline catch between vessels and between months. The structure of catch by longline from 6 ships, specifically the Belang ship, is 36.8%, with the main catch being red snapper. CJM vessels have a dominant sharp catch of 75%. Intellectual boats catching red snapper dominate 22.4%. Colomongo boats dominate the Kawa Jarong catch by 17.7%. The NN vessels had an outstanding catch of 27.3% of oil rays, and the Sinar Mars vessel had an outstanding catch of 24.5% of Kawa Jurong. The dominant grouper catch structure in January is 11.6%. In February, snapper catches dominated by 9.8%, and in March, trevally catches dominated by 78.6%. The main proportion of catch is snapper, trevally, red snapper and grouper. Meanwhile, the bycatch rate was 32.5%, including milkfish, barracuda, moray eels, sharks, catfish, lamadang and rays. The conservation status of line-caught fish species refers to the IUCN, specifically in the vulnerable category of rays and rays. The most threatened species are sharks, mackerel and milkfish. The species of least concern are trevally jurong, trevally lamadang, grouper and snapper. Species not evaluated were oil rays and tiger rays. The purpose of this study is to find out the structure of longline catch, percent, among fishing vessels and different months, determine the main goals of longline fishing and bycatch, know how to analyze the species diversity of longline between fishing vessels, every month. The analysis method uses chi-square and Kruskal-Wallis. The results show that the structure of longline fishing among vessels among other vessels is Belang fishing vessel, snapper 38%, CJM fishing vessel, blacktip shark 75%, Hikma fishing vessel, snapper 22, 4%, Colomongo fishing vessel, giant sea bass 17.7%. Agricultural fishing boats, blue-spotted rays 27%, Sinar Mars fishing boats, giant starfish 24.5%, while the composition was caught in January, grouper 30.8%, February, snapper 26.7%, and March, snapper 20.1%. The rate of primary catch was 67.5%, while bycatch was 32.5%. The variation in longline catch between vessels did not differ, while the variation between months showed different. The knife is inserted behind the operculum and slashed toward the eye until the knife touches the bone. The same method is repeated on the other side of the fish. The membrane between the gills and the gill edge was cut along the gill edge on both sides of the fish. The connection between the gills and lower jaw is also cut, while the connection between the throat and lower jaw is not cut. If this part is cut, it must be tied back to the jaw with thread or rope so that the muscle layers do not separate like the pages of a book. In addition, the connection between the gills and the base of the skull is also severed. Next, the gills and internal organs are removed in one pull through the open gill. At the final stage, the heart organ is removed and washed until clean. Carefully cleaned, the membrane attached to the edge of the gills is removed. Use a knife to scrape the edges of the gills until you get the white bone. If not removed, within a few days it will turn brown and look unattractive. The base of the skull and the back are brushed with a stiff brush to remove all clotted blood and bile. All pieces of meat and tendons inside the gill cavity are removed, then the inside and outside of the fish are carefully washed. Next, because some buyers request the long dorsal and anal fins of yellowfin tuna to be cut off, these parts can be cut off. Cut with saw. After the above process, the fish is ready to be frozen. If cold, iced or refrigerated, seawater is used. Fish should be stored in elastic cloth or plastic bags. Fish increase body temperature rapidly. Even shortly after catching, tuna's internal temperature can rise to 30 degrees Celsius. To maintain freshness, the internal temperature of tuna must be immediately reduced to 0 degrees Celsius and then maintained during storage on board. According to Blanc et al., to obtain the best quality tuna, a two-stage process should be used as follows. Lower the internal temperature of the tuna by placing it in ice-cold seawater. After 24 hours, The tuna is transferred to the storage cellar and then put on ice. Furthermore, no other treatment is required until the tuna is brought ashore. The main advantage of algae is that all fish surfaces are submerged for direct contact with the cooling medium. This technique is most effective for quickly reducing the core temperature of the fish. Algae is mixed in an insulated tank with a 2-to-1 ratio of ice and seawater. Soaking time in algae depends on the size of the smallest tuna, 25 to 40 kilograms. The recommended soaking time is 6 to 12 hours, while for the smallest size, the larger the time, the longer it takes, specifically up to 24 hours to ensure the cooling reaches the central point. Even when placed in algae, the recommended soaking time is no more than 24 hours. If there is more, this will cause the fish's color to fade and their eyes to turn white. The container that should be used is a large insulated tank of size 2.3 cubic meters or more, equipped with partitions and drainage holes that will help reduce shaking for the fish in the tank, especially when there are big waves as mentioned above. The fish should be wrapped exclusively in sleeve fabric or in plastic bags with holes to avoid friction between them before putting them into algae. This wrapping will be removed before the fish is packaged for export. You can add salt to lower the temperature a few degrees to help cool faster. The algae temperature must not be lower than the temperature when the fish begins to freeze, specifically -2 C. Algae must be regularly controlled, and if necessary, ice can be added. Algae also needs to be stirred regularly to keep the temperature even and avoid the formation of warm water pockets. In addition, pay attention to the amount of ice so that it is not too small, because this will slow the cooling process and reduce quality. Do not add too much fish, as this can cause the cooling process to be less than perfect and the quality of the fish will be. Indonesia is the 5th largest tuna producer in the world. There are many types of tuna that are widely traded in the international market, especially bluefin tuna, southern bluefin tuna, big-eyed tuna, yellowfin tuna, albacore tuna and skipjack tuna. Tuna is a product that quickly loses quality if not stored at low temperatures, and can also produce histamine compounds that are dangerous for humans when consumed. Good quality fresh tuna can be obtained by applying correct handling and storage techniques immediately after catching the fish. Commonly applied methods of handling tuna after catching are ganking, landing, killing, destroying nerves with Taniguchi tools, taking blood, removing gills and viscera, cleaning, and refrigeration. Tuna quality is affected by biotic and abiotic factors. Influential biotic factors include species, age, size, sexual maturity and presence of parasites or diseases, while abiotic factors are fishing methods, techniques handling, cooling techniques and preservation techniques. Reduces softness, and handling can be done en masse. Seawater has a freezing point lower than 0 degrees Celsius. Seawater can used as a cooling medium during travel on ships. Once you reach land, water can be used as a cooling medium. Salt 8%. However, it should be noted that salt water concentrates more than 8% will damage the texture of fish flesh, as long as the fish is deep. Soaking in salt water, the salt water will seep in. The fish flesh and mucus on the surface of the skin will disappear. Once ashore, fish can be frozen in RSW or frozen and stored in frozen storage until processing time arrives. From the soaking place, the fish is lifted, then put inside cold storage room. If the fish is put into a cold storage room, without through preliminary cooling, physical and nutritional damage occurs when melting, thawing, will be greater. Freezing and refrigerated storage is the best way to long-term storage. When processing and freezing done well and the raw materials are still fresh, then you can produce good frozen fish, which when thawing, remains in good condition, still approaching the properties of fresh fish. During the freezing process, heat transfer will occur from the fish's body at a higher temperature to the refrigerant at a higher temperature low, so that the water in the fish's body will change shape into crystals ice. Based on the sequence, the fish freezing process will start from the outside towards the inside of the body. Fishing vessels from many nations target tunas, billfish and other pelagic fish in the Central and Western Pacific Ocean. These fleets operate in international waters and within the exclusive economic zones, EEZs, of Pacific nations and territories, either as domestic fleets or foreign vessels under licensed access agreements. Most major pelagic fishes are widely distributed and highly migratory, and domestic and foreign fisheries based in Pacific Island and mainland nations compete for common pelagic fishery resources. Commercial pelagic fisheries in the Central and Western Pacific consist of a mixture of large industrialized fleets from the so-called distant water fishing nations, DWFNs, smaller domestic commercial fleets from Pacific Island nations, and artisanal domestic fisheries. The main DWFNs operating in the region are the USA, Japan, Taiwan and Korea. Other DWFNs that operate on a large scale within this area include the People's Republic of China, the Philippines, Australia and New Zealand. Vessels from these nations use troll, pole and line, longline and purse seine gear to harvest pelagic species. These fisheries target widely ranging pelagic species such as tunas, skipjack, yellowfin, albacore, big eye, northern bluefin, and billfish, broadbill swordfish, striped, blue and black marlin, spearfish, and all have the potential for a considerable bycatch of wahoo, dolphinfish, mahi-mahi, pelagic sharks and sailfish, depending on the fishing method used and area fished. For more information on the major pelagic species, please refer to the Pacific Profile entitled Important Pelagic Fishes of the Pacific, Western Pacific Regional Fishery Management Council, 1995. Purse seine, longline and troll fleets all range widely throughout the tropical, subtropical and temperate Pacific, operating both in international waters and within the EEZs of Pacific Island nations and U.S. territories. In addition to the island fisheries, several pelagic fisheries are based on the west coast of the U.S. mainland. All areas in the region have locally based hook and line fisheries, mostly troll and handline, that concentrate on near-shore tuna resources, and the California-based drift gillnet fleet also operates within the 200-mile U.S. EEZ. Pacific Island nations have also begun industrial-scale pelagic fishing in an effort to increase benefits from their own marine resources, beyond the collection of access fees from DWFNs. In the past, these operations have typically been joint venture pole and line and longline tuna fishing enterprises with DWFNs, but there is an increasing trend toward the island nations owning and operating their own purse seine and longline fleets. Of the total tuna catch taken by the major gear types in the Central and Western Pacific, over 80% by weight is landed by purse seines, with pole and line and longline vessels each accounting for about 8 to 9% of the catch. Albacore trollers land less than 1% of the total, and local troll and handline fisheries make up the remaining 1% or so. The major Pacific pelagic fisheries are purse seine gear targets surface swimming tuna schools for canning. Most of the catch consists of skipjack and yellowfin tuna with a small proportion of big eye tuna. The yellowfin and big eye tuna taken by purse seines are mostly immature fish,